This week we'll be finally going over all of the achievements in SpongeBob SquarePants The Cosmic Shake. This game has 44 achievements and takes about an average of 15 hours to complete. And for what it's worth, over on achievement tracking websites, I'll have those pop up right here. Now as for what I would give it on a difficulty rating to 100%, I made a little chart to scale it on, and I think it gets about a 20%, making it still fall under very easy to complete. And that's due to it having multiple achievements for boss battles where you have to get the timing down pretty well, so it may take a few tries there. It has a lot of collectibles, and I mean a whole lot, and the game is kind of expensive for what it's worth. And of course, I do have to let you know that the devs did send me a key as a review copy of the game. And now, let's get to hunting. There will be quite a few collectibles in the game that'll be tied to a few achievements, but those are best left for the end game, so we'll go over those then. One thing to note is that you should be picking up as much jelly as possible throughout the game so that you can buy all of the costumes. For the first set of achievements we'll go over, there will be one for each map that you get for defeating the final boss. Technically they say it's for completing all main missions, but it's gonna trigger as soon as you beat the final boss for each map. So, we have Deputy for the Wild West Jellyfish Fields, Movie Star for the Karate Downtown Bikini Bottom, First Mate for the Pirate Goo Lagoon, Scaredy Pants for Halloween Rock Bottom, Ooh Ha Ha for the Prehistoric Kelp Forest, King of the Castle for the Medieval Sulphur Fields, Ride Rider for the Jelly Glove World, and Local Hero for saving Bikini Bottom from being destroyed. That last one you get for defeating the giant Squidward boss at the end of the game. Now moving on to more specific achievements, we have Dress Up for unlocking your first costume as we're getting into the first world. Cassandra will talk to you and give you a cowboy outfit before sending you out to the Wild West Jellyfish Fields. Then once in the Jellyfish Fields, we can get BounceBob for jumping 10 times in a row on one jump pad. There are quite a few of these at the beginning of the level, so feel free to use any of them. You just have to jump on one and stay above it to keep bouncing until you hit 10 times. You can do this with any bounce pad in the game. This is just one of the early on areas that you can do this. Next will be Wanted Sponge for hitting 25 NPCs. Just hit random NPCs as you can and you'll get this fairly quickly. Sponge Out of Harm's Way is for defeating 50 enemies without taking damage inflicted by them. This you'll get naturally pretty easily, just don't get hit by the enemies, and once you defeat 50 of them like this, you'll get the achievement. Then Bamboozled is for bubbling an enemy that hasn't detected SpongeBob yet. You may get this early on by accident, but if not, just pay attention to the enemies as you're walking up. And if they aren't alert to you yet, you could just throw a bubble at them to catch them. Next will be Bubble the Trouble for bubbling 10 tartar jellies that are currently engaged in an attack. While the tartar enemy is shooting shots at you, you can shoot them with a bubble to stop them in their attack. They're pretty forgiving on the timing on this, so it shouldn't be too tough to get. Stunning Performance is for pushing 50 enemies with the Jelly Maker Roar. As you hit the big Jelly Maker enemy, it'll let out a roar to knock you back. This, however, also knocks back any enemies close enough to be hit by it as well. So just draw enemies in close, hit the Jelly Maker, and you'll work towards getting this achievement. Then, Is It a Plane, Is It a Pizza is for gliding 1,000 meters throughout the game. You'll get this naturally pretty early on as you have to glide a lot as you navigate the maps. Next we'll go over The Way of the Sponge for karate kicking 100 enemies. You'll get this ability in the Karate Downtown Bikini Bottom map, and you'll get this pretty naturally. Just use that karate kick attack on 100 enemies throughout the game and you'll eventually get this. Friendly Fires for defeating a big jelly with the Baby Boom projectile. This one can be a bit tricky to get done, but I found it to be easy enough on the Pirate Goo Lagoon map as you get to these floating pier areas where you fight groups of enemies. Position yourself between the big jelly and a baby boom, wait for the baby boom to shoot at you, and then dodge it so that it hits the big jelly. It'll be easier if you take the big jelly down to 1 life before trying to do this. Then Boxing Champion will be for destroying 1,000 tikis. You should get this one naturally as well, as long as you're working towards grinding enough jellies to buy all the costumes. Next will be Red and Shiny for pressing 50 buttons. This will take a little bit to get to, but eventually you'll get this one after hitting enough buttons. Very self-explanatory. SpongeBob JellyPants you'll get for carrying 10,000 jellies at once. That means you'll want to make sure that you're grinding out picking up as many as possible, but don't spend any until after you've hit 10,000. No need to make this one any harder than it has to be when you need to get more than 10,000 anyway. Then Volley King is for defeating 10 baby booms by reflecting their missiles. This can take a little bit of thought and getting the timing right, but basically just stand straight out from one of these guys and let them shoot at you. Then hit the bomb mid-air with your spatula to deflect it back towards it. If you've ever played Minecraft, it's basically the same thing as fighting a ghast. Music Enthusiast is for listening to a Slamville perform a solo in peace and quiet. This will be on the Pirate Goo Lagoon map and more specifically near the Scurvy Swamp checkpoint. Head straight out from the checkpoint and then over to the left once at that middle island. Once on the fishing hook, you'll need to twist to the left so you can jump over to a little alcove where you can find this little guy singing. Staying on Pirate Goo Lagoon, we can get Beach Spinster for spinning 6 beach umbrellas at once. Just go to the Bongo Beach checkpoint, and in this area you can run along the water, smacking the umbrellas to spin them, making this pretty easy to get. Next is Hazardous for defeating 25 Ninjellies with environmental hazards. This is easiest to do in the battle with Glovey Glove. At the first portion, he'll be shooting goo down at you while jellies are spawning around you, and you can just let them touch the goo to be defeated. This will count as an environmental hazard and makes this quick to grind out. Not to mention there's specifically an achievement for doing this anyway. Jaws with Flaws is for defeating 10 enemies with the Burrower. This can be done pretty easily by going to the SpongeBob's Pineapple checkpoint of Bikini Bottom. Directly to the left you'll have a Burrower as well as a few other enemies. Just jump around over there so that the Burrower will come up underneath those enemies to defeat them. Then load that same checkpoint on the map and repeat. Then Jellyfish Hunter is for catching 50 jellyfish. This will take a bit to get, but just keep it in mind as you play through the game that you do need to be hitting jellyfish with your spatula attack. This will count as catching them, and once you get to 50, you'll get the achievement. Next is Spring Cleaning for sucking in a total of 100 enemies with the Reef Blower. You'll get access to this late in the game, and then there's going to be plenty of challenges involving the Reef Blower, so that you should get this eventually while doing those. If you do want to grind it out, you can always go to one of those challenges, suck a lot of enemies in, fail the challenge, and restart it. Sponginator is for destroying 500 objects. This may take a while to get to, but it's very self-explanatory. Just hit things to break them throughout the game, and you'll eventually get this. Then Return to Sender is for defeating 5 jelly makers by knocking other enemies into them. This can be somewhat tough to get done as you do have to lure an enemy straight out from the jelly maker and then hit it with your spatula to knock it back into the jelly maker. To make it easier, you can always just hit them twice to get them down to 1 health and then try to time a hit to knock an enemy into them to finish them off. The timing and the angle that you have to do it is hard enough, so you'll definitely want to make this easier on yourself. Next is Wrath Tub for defeating 25 enemies with the Big Jelly's attack. This is done by running around one of the big jellies and allowing smaller enemies to also run up to you. Stay still for long enough and he'll try to slam his tub down on top of you, also defeating any enemies under it. A good place to grind this out is on the Goo Lagoon map. At the second group of buildings, you'll have a big jelly in the middle with a lot of small enemies around him. Kite those over to him and let him defeat those until they're all gone, then reload and repeat. King of Bubbles is for bubbling 100 enemies. Simple enough, just use that bubble attack on 100 enemies throughout the game. Anytime you hit one with a bubble, it'll get trapped inside, and it'll count. And now, we can go to the special boss fight achievements. Now I have these listed near the end of the video because none of these are actually missable. Every single boss fight is going to have some kind of checkpoint that you can go to or a portal that'll take you into the boss fight so that you can repeat those to get these challenges done. The Good, the Bad, and the Krabby is for catching Mr. Krabs in under 3 minutes. Once the chase sequence starts, you're gonna have to go as fast as you can, constantly hitting the speed up button on the seahorse. Once you get up to the train, you'll need to follow the steps I go through in this video to try to get through the train fight as fast as possible. That's going to be the part where you can really make up some time, or lose it. So I'll let the rest of this play out to give you an idea of a good run. Kah-Rah-Tay King is for not taking damage during the sandy boss fight. This one isn't that bad, you just have to get used to the mechanics and time the dodges correctly. Keep an eye on your health as you go through it and you'll be able to tell if you take a hit. Deck Scrubber is for reclaiming the Dutchman's ship within 5 minutes during the boss fight. This one isn't too hard to do, but once you take the slingshot to start the fight, you'll just want to learn the route that you have to go through so you can keep on moving and only really fight the enemies if you absolutely have to. However, once you get to the actual ship, you do have to defeat every enemy in order to proceed through each part. Pet You Didn't See That Coming is for not being seen by Gary during his boss fight. This isn't too hard to do, but it does take a bit of timing to get through it. I'll have my run playing here so that you can see where I stop, wait, and run. Gary will sometimes stop watching for you, and those are your chances to really run for it. But once he's going to start scanning again, you do need to stop and play a bit more carefully. Once you get to the end, just smack the vending machine device to finish the boss battle. Dehydrated is for evading all of Pom Pom's shockwaves during the boss fight. This one's kind of the same thing as Sandy's challenge, but a bit more specific on what you can take damage from and a bit harder to actually dodge the attacks. Just be sure to keep an eye on your health, and if you take damage from a regular enemy, don't really worry about it too much. We're only really going to be worried about dodging Pom Pom's shockwaves. Night in Shining PJs is for delivering all of the cakes without getting hit once in the Medieval Sulphur Fields boss fight. It's not super hard to get this done, but it is pretty tedious. You'll need to play it pretty safe as you're navigating the battle to make sure that you don't get hit and that you can get all of those cakes delivered. Splash Zone is for having Glovey Glove defeat 20 enemies during the boss fight. At the beginning of the fight, this will be very easy to do and helps you with another achievement that we covered earlier on anyway. Just run around the beginning area and allow him to shoot goo onto the field and let all of the other enemies step into it to take damage and get defeated. Tentacle Dodger is for not getting hit by Jelly Squidward's tentacles during that boss fight. This was actually one of the easier ones to do when it comes to the not getting hit boss challenges, and I even got it done on the first try. His attacks are pretty simple, so you shouldn't have much trouble with this one. And now for the last 4 achievements, we have a lot of grinding to do. SpongeLock HolmesPants is for finding the secret spatula in every level, and Wanna See Me Do It Again is for clearing every level defeating the final boss. So basically getting every collectible in the game. Now, luckily for you, I do have a playlist detailing where every collectible in the game is, linked in the description as well as the end of the video. So I won't go into those too much here. Just go through my playlist of videos and you'll get all of those done. Next up is Fashion Hunter for unlocking all costumes. This costs a lot of jelly, but luckily not as much as in the first game. The best place I found to grind this out was by going to the parking lot checkpoint of the Karate Downtown Bikini Bottom map. Once there, you can run straight ahead to trigger the explosive tikis to blow up, and immediately run to the right through the fence to jump up and slam down into the middle of the tiki pyramid to break all of those. Then break the small groups right next to it and reload the checkpoint. This gets you almost 200 jelly for just 17 seconds. A lot of the other grinding spots out there aren't anywhere near this quick, and it'll allow you to get enough jelly to buy all of the costumes super easily. And now, once we get all of these other things done, and I mean everything else in this video, then we can finally get one sponge to rule them all for getting all awards. The awards list correlate to the achievements, so by the time you get the last one done, you're also going to get this one. And with that, we have 100% of the achievements in SpongeBob SquarePants The Cosmic Shake. Now be sure to check out my Cosmic Shake playlist, and if you find what we do here helpful or cool, consider becoming a YouTube member or joining us on Patreon.